Hey, today we're going to be learning about Captain Marvel, the Shazam DC Comics character, and the Free Encyclopedia is going to be our information resource for today. Rather than reading the text on this webpage, you will be listening to it as you witness this highly sped up rendition of the first episode of the 1941 Adventures of Captain Marvel serial, directed by William Witney and John English. So, Captain Marvel, also known as Shazam, and the Captain, is a superhero in American comic books, originally published by Fawcett Comics and currently published by DC Comics artist C.C. Beck and writer Bill Parker created the character in 1939. Captain Marvel first appeared in Whiz Comics number 2, cover dated February 1940. Published by Fawcett Comics, he's the alter ego of Billy Batson, a boy who, by speaking the magic word Shazam, acronym of 6 immortal elders, Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, and Mercury, is transformed into a costumed adult with the powers of superhuman strength, speed, flight, and other abilities. The character battles an extensive rogues gallery, most of them working in tandem as the Monster Society of Evil, including primary archenemies Black Adam, Dr. Sivana, and Mr. Mind. Billy often shares his powers with other children, primarily his sister Mary Batson and their best friend slash foster brother Freddie Freeman, who also transform into superheroes and fight crime with Billy as members of the Marvel family, also known as the Shazam family. Based on comic book sales, Captain Marvel was the most popular superhero of the 1940s, outselling even Superman. Captain Marvel was also the first comic book superhero to be adapted to film in a 1941 Republic Pictures serial, Adventures of Captain Marvel, with Tom Tyler as Captain Marvel and Frank Coughlin Jr. as Billy Batson. I know there are Flash Gordon serials that precede this one. I guess they're not considered superhero fiction. They are comic books, whatever. I guess he's not a masked vigilante or a costume vigilante. Yeah. Fawcett ceased publishing Captain Marvel related comics in 1953, partly because of a copyright infringement suit from DC Comics alleging that Captain Marvel was a copy of Superman. Well, a little bit. In 1972, Fawcett licensed the character rights to DC, which by 1991 acquired all rights to the entire family of characters. DC has since integrated Captain Marvel and the Marvel family into their DC universe, and has attempted to revive the property several times, with mixed success. Owing to trademark conflicts over other characters named Captain Marvel owned by Marvel Comics, DC has branded and marketed the character using the trademark Shazam since his 1972 reintroduction. This led many to assume that Shazam was the character's name. DC renamed the mainline version of the character Shazam when relaunching its comic book properties in 2011, and his associates became the Shazam family at this time as well. DC's revival of Shazam has been adapted twice for television by Filmation, as a live-action 1970 series of Jackson Bostwick and John Davey as Captain Marvel and Michael Gray, and as Billy Batson, and as an animated 1980s series. For 2019 New Line Cinema / Warner Brothers film Shazam, an entry in the DC Extended Universe stars Zachary Levi as Shazam and Asher Angel as Billy Batson. Levi and Angel return in the sequel Shazam Fury of the Gods. That came out this year, I believe. Yeah. The character was ranked as the 55th greatest comic book character of all time by Wizard magazine. IGN also ranked Shazam as the 50th greatest comic book hero of all time, stating that the character will always be an enduring reminder of a simpler time. UGO Networks ranked him as one of the top heroes of entertainment, saying, "At his best, Shazam has always been compared to Superman with a sense of crazy, goofy fun." Captain Marvel's first appearance, Whiz Comics number 2, did not have any copyright registration or renewal, meaning that the character is in the public domain. That's fascinating. The other thing I'd like to read out regarding Captain Marvel himself before we get onto the serial from 1941, I'd actually like to discuss, under cultural impact and legacy, they've got a good section here on Wikipedia about how once they introduced Captain Marvel / Shazam into the DC universe, they were struck, captivated by the prospect of Captain Marvel being this, in terms of his powers, something of a rival to Superman. Now, if you're a big fan of DC Comics, you probably know well enough that the idea that Superman is the most powerful of the Justice League is kind of just because of his popularity. Logistically, you would think that the Green Lantern, certainly Kyle Rayner's Green Lantern, or Martian Manhunter, frankly, even Wally West, given how fast Wally can go, might be able to beat Superman, actually. Although, because having these supporting characters as more godlike than Superman isn't good for visual marketing or whatever, they decide that promoting Captain Marvel, Shazam, as a sort of powerful arch rival to Superman's prowess is more apt and makes sense to the average comic book reader because they look like each other. One was just meant to be a rip-off of the other, frankly, and there's almost a fascinating contrast between Superman, this character that has not only endured, but they attempted for him to endure, and they updated him across time. Captain Marvel have had a more difficult time doing that because he is such a product of his time, because it's not like there was an original spark or idea there outside of mimicry for another fictional archetype, that being the fresh Superman storylines of the late 30s and early 40s. Anyway, cultural impact and legacy. Captain Marvel versus Superman in fiction. Captain Marvel's adventures have contributed a number of elements to both comic book culture and pop culture in general. The most notable contribution is the regular use of Superman and Captain Marvel as adversaries in modern-age comic book stories. The two are often portrayed as equally matched, and while Marvel does not possess Superman's heat vision, X-ray vision, or superhuman breath powers, the magic-based nature of his own powers are a weakness for Superman. The National Comics/Fawcett Comics rivalry was parodied in Super Duperman, a satirical comic book story by Harvey Kurtzman and Wally Wood in the fourth issue of Mad, April/May 1953. Super Duperman, endowed with muscles on muscles, does battle with Captain Marvel's, a Captain Marvel caricature. Marvel's magic word is Shazoom, which stands for strength, health, aptitude, zeal, power of another, and money. In contrast to Captain Marvel's perceived innocence and goodness, Marvel's is greedy and money-grubbing, and a master criminal. Super Duperman defeats Marvel's by tricking him into hitting himself. While publishing its Shazam revival in the 1970s, DC Comics published a story in Superman number 276, June 1974, featuring a battle between the Man of Steel and a thinly disguised version of Captain Marvel called Captain Thunder, a reference to the character's original name. He apparently battles against a monster league who cast a spell to make him evil, but Superman helps him break free. 2 years later, Justice League of America number 135 to 137 presented a story arc which featured the heroes of Earth 1, Earth 2, and Earth S teaming together against their enemies. It is in this story that Superman and Captain Marvel first meet, albeit briefly. King Kal has caused Superman to go mad using red kryptonite, compelling Marvel to battle him at first and subsequently restore Superman's mind with the help of lightning. In Shazam number 30, 1977, Dr. Sivana creates several steel creatures to destroy Pittsburgh's steel mills after getting the idea from reading an issue of Action Comics. He finally creates a Superman robot made of a super steel to destroy Captain Marvel. They both hit each other at the same moment and the robot is destroyed. Notable later Superman/Captain Marvel battles in DC Comics include All-New Collector's Edition number C58, 1978, All-Star Squadron number 36 and 37, 1984, and Superman Volume 2 number 102, 1995. The Superman/Captain Marvel battle depicted in Kingdom Come number 4, 1996, serves as the climax of that miniseries, with Marvel having been brainwashed by Lex Luthor and Mr. Mind to turn against the other heroes. The Clash episode of Justice League Unlimited, which includes Captain Marvel as a guest character, features a Superman/Captain Marvel fight as its centerpiece, Lex Luthor, manipulating events so that Captain Marvel will perceive Superman as being prejudiced against Luthor's criminal past and attacking him without provocation or evidence that Luthor has actually done anything wrong. By contrast, the depiction of the pair's first meeting in the Superman/Shazam First Thunder miniseries establishes them as firm friends and allies to the point of Superman volunteering to be Billy's mentor when he learns the boy's true age. And now to some information relating to this serial itself. Adventures of Captain Marvel was budgeted at $135,553, although the final negative cost was $145,588, $10,035 or 7.4% overspend. It was filmed between December 23rd, 1940 and January 30th, 1941 under the working title Captain Marvel. The serial's production number was 1098. The serial was the outgrowth of Republic's lengthy failed attempt at licensing national periodical publications, DC Comics Today, Superman character. Paramount Pictures successfully tied up all the characters' theatrical exhibition rights for its series of color Superman animated cartoons produced for them by Fleischer Studios. The license that National Comics had provided to Paramount was exclusive and prevented other film companies from using the Superman character, even in a non-animated production. Undaunted, Republic's completed script is reworked with various changes. It now had an original masked hero, the Copperhead, standing in for Superman, subsequently becoming the mysterious Dr. Satan serial. The studio then approached Fawcett Comics about filming their most popular superhero, and they agreed. Director William Witney, however, was skeptical about trying to adapt Captain Marvel after the problems encountered with Superman. In spite of this, Adventures of Captain Marvel became the first superhero film adaptation of a comic book character. National attempted legal action to prevent Republic from developing their arch-rival's most successful character, citing Republic's failure at adapting a Superman serial. Their attempt was unsuccessful, however, and Captain Marvel went into production. Writing in his autobiography of the period, William Witney revealed that in his court deposition, he had claimed that both Superman and Captain Marvel were derivatives of Popeye. About a decade later, following an ongoing legal battle with National and a declining comics market, Fawcett ceased publication of all its comic book titles. In the 1970s, the dormant Captain Marvel family of characters was licensed and revived by DC Comics, which they ultimately wound up purchasing, adding a final chapter to the Fawcett/DC saga. The opening military scenes in the serial were reused footage lifted from Republic's 1938 film Storm over Bengal. And there's a bit about the casting, a bit about the special effects, but I don't want to... We're spending a bit of time here, and I don't want to give it no reason why I've had to speed up the serial as opposed to... This episode is supposed to play at normal speed. Authors Jim Harmon and Donald F. Glutt. He directs a couple of really interesting films about the history of dinosaur flicks and the use of gorilla costumes in Hollywood, both which came out in the early 90s. Authors Jim Harmon and Donald F. Glutt claim that if Adventures of Captain Marvel is unquestionably one of the finest movie serials ever made, possibly the best with the exception of the Free Flash Gordon epics. Oliver William C. Klein describes this as one of the most outstanding of all serials and Republic's masterpiece. He writes that Tyler's striking performance remains in thousands of minds as the most memorable serial hero of all time, bar none. Quentin Tarantino called Tyler's Marvel the most homicidal berserker superhero of cinema. Darkman was pretty nasty too, I suppose. And Deadpool's been in films recently. They weren't overwhelmingly great, but comics Deadpool's pretty nasty, dude. At times, the characters of Betty Wallace, Whitey Murphy, and John Malcolm all appeared in the Fawcett comics in the 1940s, beginning of Captain Marvel in the Temple of Itzalotaiu, Wiz Comics number 22, October 3rd, 1941, featuring Murphy and Malcolm. Murphy made several appearances in the 1970s DC Comics incarnation of Captain Marvel, as featured in the comic series Shazam and World's Finest Comics. Fawcett also published a sequel to the 1941 serial, titled The Return of the Scorpion. It was one of the 4 releases in its Dime Action book series, which imitated the format of the popular Big Little books. The book is notable for reusing several characters from the serial and for being Otto Binder's first writing assignment at Fawcett. He went on to be a prolific comics writer for the company. Interesting. A comic book sequel to this serial. Neat. In 1994, comic book writer/artist Jerry Ordway wrote and painted a graphic novel, The Power of Shazam, and an ongoing comic book series spin-off which ran from 1995 to 1999. Ordway used the Republic serial as his initial inspiration in his handling of the Captain Marvel characters. And we'll close it here. Thanks again, everyone. I appreciate it very immensely.